Sat Sri Akal, everyone. Welcome back to the Crypto Khalsa. Today, we have Sam with us, who is the founder of Archon, which is a very good decentralized protocol, very much similar to, I would say, Filecoin or Codex, or I would say Akash protocol, something similar to them. I think Sam would be at a better space to help you understand what Archon was all about.
I don't know if that's relevant anymore, but the project is no longer active first and foremost. And so we did have a decentralized storage protocol and kind of network that we built up. Our main value add or differentiator was we created a new type of erasure encoding algorithm. And what that lets us do is to safely upload the files with redundancy. And so what that means is you can take a file, encode it, and then chop it up and then distribute it across a huge network. So like one piece goes to every node in a giant network. And what that lets us do is to store things very spread out. And then whenever we need the file back, we kind of collect some pieces and then...
Similar to ICFS, what ICFS is doing right now.
Kind of. And so you kind of just collect the pieces. And the benefit of doing it with the erasure encoding is that you can lose pieces. Your nodes can go down. It doesn't really matter. And so it's a very available way to kind of get the data back together. And so we found a new way to do that. And then we built a protocol off of that. We raised, I think, $2.1 million in our seed round back in 2018. And then we built out a few iterations of it. We did an MVP in 2019. And then we did like a version, the next version, I think we called it version 1 in like 2020, early 2020. And then my co-founder, so I'm actually a co-founder, not the founder. So there was a main founder guy and it was his algorithm and he was much more the tech guy. And so he ended up buying all of us out, like the rest of the team. He just bought out our shares so that he can raise another round and kind of pivot and go his own way. And I think he wanted to focus on enterprise because I think he was from that space more. And so,
Okay. And how has the retirement life been after moving out?
like semi-retired.
Let's
Still
put it
do
that
stuff. Yeah.
How has the life been after not doing like actively working on anything since 2020?
Yeah, I think what ended up happening with that project was I ended up getting burnt out, but I didn't realize I was burnt out at the time. So I read online that there's like phases to burning out, and there's like immediate burnout where you're genuinely like stressed out all the time, and then you need like a week, then you take a week off, and then you feel better.
And then you're going back.
Yeah. But that's like apparently surface level burnout. And so you can be more deeply burnt out. And so what that requires you to do is to kind of step back and reassess what you're doing and why you're doing things and kind of your approach and how you're feeling about all those things. And so I think that took me quite a long time because during that was when COVID happened for me, at least. And so during that, it threw everything out of alignment and everything was a little bit chaotic. And so during that time, I actually left San Francisco. I moved out to South Korea to kind of just get out of the Bay Area a little bit. And so
I've been down to the South Korean state and like relaxed a bit. That's where the traditional life is, right? And that's where you like left all the mess in the US and went back.
Yeah, I just kind of stepped away, let it do its thing. And then I was doing my own thing over here. And then, during that, I worked on a different project, not as a founder, just helping, doing like some project management and stuff.
Let's talk about the early days in Ethereum. That's something that I think no one really understands what we have come to now. And you have been following this space since like as early as like 2015, 16. And you've been, this space, I think, better than most of the people who have been visiting here. So where do you think the industry is going? And do you find any difference from what it has evolved from? Do you realize that market has become much more like the developers, they have become much more streamlined.
Yeah.
Then the raw meat has become like much more minced now.
Yeah.
So what are your views on this?
Yeah, maybe I'll just go into a little bit of history with like the timeline and stuff. So I first got exposed to like Bitcoin in 2014. And that's back when I was doing like design stuff. And so one of my clients said, "Hey, I know I owe you money. Can I pay you in Bitcoin?" And I was like, "I don't know what that is, but you want to pay me? Like, yeah, let's do it." And so he had to like set up a wallet. It was a Circle wallet back then, and so he was like, "You have to do this and go here and sign up for this, and then write this stuff down or whatever it was."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so after that, unfortunately, I like sold it immediately because I was broke. And so I was like, "Oh, you paid me. I can sell it. Okay, I have to sell it, and then I can like send it to my bank account and like spend it and buy food and stuff." And so, uh, unfortunately, I don't have that anymore. But that was my initial interaction, and then around 2016, I tried to get back into coding, and so I went to a coding boot camp back down in Silicon Valley, like San Jose area. And one of the guys there was the one that kept talking about crypto. Like he was into Bitcoin, he was into Monero, and that was his whole thing. And he was great. So he sat down and explained everything to me. And then I asked him a bunch of questions like, how does this work? Why does this happen? Like, why is it that way? And then who does this? And like, who is Satoshi? Like stuff like that. And he was great. And he explained it very thoroughly. And from that point on, I was like, this sounds cool. This sounds like something important and something that's big, right? That could be big. And so I knew that I would want to focus on this area. And so since then, I've been full time crypto. That's been my main thing. And there's never really been a time when I was like, maybe I should do something else. Because I genuinely believe that this is gonna be
The real
around
next
for a
big
long time.
thing.
I don't know about that, but like, yeah, it's gonna be around for a long time. Like, it's not going away in the next 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay. And in 2016, I think 2016 was the year when smart contracts were launched. And
yeah,
what was your
I think it
very
was like
first experience?
2015 or so.
Yeah, a very
Um,
first experience.
yeah, that was what everyone did back then.
Everyone knows about that time. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good time. So I had friends. So I was living in San Francisco or like the Bay Area at the time, and the people I was meeting, they were like, "Oh yeah, we're doing an ICO," and I was like, "Oh, what is that?" And then they either explained it or not, and they were like, "Okay, we're doing it on this day at this time, and we're gonna start it." And then within like 1 minute, they made like millions of dollars, right? And
It was
so
crazy.
those are the early days.
Uzis.
Just yeah,
Yeah.
they were like, "Send." Oh, we have millions of dollars now. So but yeah, so that was exciting. But that was my first exposure to like smart contracts. I didn't really understand what was happening. Like I knew theoretically, it's like, oh, we're putting out this thing called the contract, and it goes on this place. Like kind of like you upload something somewhere, and then you do something somehow, and people can then use that and like throw money at it, or like throw like tokens at it.
Back then, I think ERC 721 was not launched, right? So no one really knew what an NFT was.
That was before ERC 20s even.
Yeah.
I think were a thing.
I think USDT was the first implementation of the official ERC20 contract.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
And I think that was an like official ERC20 was way ahead, right? So back when the first smart contract came into picture and you came to know about a technology which could help you execute code on a blockchain, what was your first reaction? And was there something that you were like really intrigued about, or did you build something out of it?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing that we tried to build using something like a smart contract was in early 2017. I went to a hackathon um, in the Bay Area, and what we ended up building was a uh, like 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 wheels on the blockchain. Wheels meaning here's all my stuff. When I die, I want my stuff to go to these people in this amount and in this way.
Hmm.
And so that was my first attempt because that made sense to me. I was like, oh, like you can have programmable money basically. And so that logically makes sense to just say like when you die, you want the money to programmatically go this way. we didn't use Ethereum at the time because it wasn't that pervasive. Like not everyone knew how to work with it at the time.
Yeah.
And so what we ended up doing was building it on Bitcoin in like script. And that was really hard. It took a lot more effort than we thought. And then even then, you still had to figure out other stuff like how do you store this? And like we didn't use IPFS back then just because it wasn't as like,
as strong as it is right now.
Yeah. Like we knew it, but it wasn't like the default, right? Like not everyone just knew that that was there and that you can use it and that it's like how it works and stuff. So we ended up using something else. I think it might have been like storage at the time, as like with a J. And so that was the first thing I helped build in the crypto space. We did not win that hackathon because
no one wins the first time.
Yeah. But that was like January 2017. I think that was the first thing.
Yeah. Let's move ahead of that timeline. So now smart contracts are launched. Uniswap has come up with a very interesting algorithm. With which you can like actually do market making on the blockchain. It's a new industry altogether, something which everyone is like deeply excited about. Everyone is
much later though, isn't it?
The first protocol was launched in I think 2017.
Yeah.
And the Uniswap V2 was I think launched in 2018.
Maybe.
If I'm not messing up with the timelines, I'm not very sure. But yes, let's go forward. Now Uniswap V2 has come up. Everyone is like talking about market making. And you like now, I think 2018, Ethereum decided to shift from proof of work to proof of stake. Now, what was your reaction? Like an algorithmic blockchain shifting its whole paradigm from mineable to stakeable. What was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think it was very well communicated, so it wasn't a surprise to anyone, right? Like everyone knew well in advance, and like everyone had ample opportunity to contribute and you know like voice their opinions and then have discussions. So many discussions about every little piece of all of the options that people were going through, like which mistake, which like that whole like 2-3 year period was just discussions and like debate and kind of just like thinking things through. And then I think for me, I'm not like core developer or anything like that. And so for me, it was very different, where I was just trying to keep up, just trying to follow the conversations. Then I didn't really have that strong of an opinion either way. And at that point, I think at a certain level, you have to just trust the people who are running things. And I had like seen Vitalik talk a few times. Like I'm not an expert. I want to be clear about that. But like, but yeah, like he clearly knows what he's talking about. I feel like, and so I got to a point where I was thinking, who knows better, me or Vitalik, right? And so clearly he knows better. And so at that point where all of the questions that I have are not at the level of like protocol design, right? It's at the level of usage, right? And like, how would I use it? How was my experience going to change? And then maybe a little bit deeper than that would be like ethos, like kind of like the soul, like what is the soul of Ethereum, right? And is that changing? And I feel like it did change a little bit, but I think fundamentally it was less about like changing and more about like maturing in a certain way. And whether that's good or not is debatable, but like it was very clearly thought out. People had the good intention, right? So the intention was to make it better. And then there were lots of people saying like, don't change. Like, why change? It's already good. Like, let's just keep going. And it was a very deliberate and conscious effort and decision to go through it. And a lot of effort went into making sure that we went through it in a positive, beneficial way, right? And while looking at all the potential downsides and observing them and watching them as it progressed. I think he was done very well and very responsibly.
Of course.
Like I couldn't do better, right? Like to be completely honest, like if I had to do it, it would have been a mess. but
Hmm.
they did it very well.
So let's talk about the events which happened at that time where the market was just maturing.
Sure.
Um, so Sam going to an event back in 2018, 19 when Ethereum was like maturing, I would say,
Sure.
versus Sam in a 2000, like 2024 event where I think it has matured. I wouldn't say it is like totally matured. It's still in the maturing stage.
Yeah.
But how do you feel? What has changed over the years? What are the things, the key highlights that Sam has seen over the years which have changed? Of course, the scale has become much higher now. Back in those days, I remember such conferences took less than a room space where only a bunch of these developers and we were like going to such conferences and like seeing, okay, so now people are knowing this. Now it is getting bigger now.
Yeah.
Earlier it was a smaller room. Now they have a bigger hall. So now you see a huge convention center being booked by the foundation and organizing an event like this. So how do you think the events have progressed over the years?
Sure. I think there's like two different types of events, like scale of events. There's conferences,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's local, I would say like meetup events. Right?
Mhm.
Like in America, we use
Of
meetup.com,
course.
or like something similar to it. Not so much anymore, but like back then in like 2017, 18, 19, 20, I think everyone used Meetup. So I would say the conferences were like a special thing, and like the meetups were more consistent. So we would do meetups like in bull runs, we would be meeting up every 2 or 3 days, right? And the turnout for each of those was massive. Like it would be a meetup just to be like, hey guys, like come out and hang out. Like we'll probably talk about some tech thing, and we'll have pizza, and like come and join us. And everyone's welcome, right? And that was the vibe back in like 17, 18. I think that was where I felt the most comfortable because it was very interactive. You could talk to everyone. And like there were really smart people. This was in San Francisco mostly. And that was one of the like Renaissance period cities, right? Like a lot of stuff came out of San Francisco from that time. Yeah, so much has happened. But yeah, so the meetups I think were the core, and then the conferences around that time was actually already starting to change a little bit. It was less about like a massive meetup. So the conferences used to be just like a big meetup, right? Like a bigger meetup. But then it started to be more professional. People would have booths, right? Like set up like the table, have like your banner.
I remember like setting up a booth like this and helping new people, helping them understand what Solidity is, helping them understand, okay, this is very similar to JavaScript. Let me like code it for you. This is how you, back then Remix was not a thing.
Yeah.
Nowadays, everyone knows what an online SDK is. Like you can directly set up a MetaMask account connected with your Remix account. But at that time, you had to directly deploy your file code.
We had to run a node.
You had to run a node, right? And then you had to like push your code because there were no public RPCs. Now, when the venture guys came into the picture, they like kind of gave support to the community by giving them the public RPCs.
Everything's easy now.
Now, like earlier in those days, I remember we had to set up an AWS node and then we had to inject the code so that every other node has the same code. Of course, that's how the mining works. So, but now I think the one notable difference that I've seen is people becoming more hostile. They have become more intrusive. They have become like more constrained amongst themselves, and communication is less now. Earlier in those times, we used to be more happening. We used to be more developer friendly.
Okay.
Now I think it is more business friendly. It has become more organized, more as a corporate.
Okay.
I think developers have reduced and people showcasing them as developers have increased. The real tech knowledge is decreasing and the showcasing, I think that is increasing. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think I see your point. There's definitely, I can definitely see that happening. But I think that's happening for different reasons. So I think back back in the earlier days, it was just blockchain, right? Like even like it wasn't even just like Ethereum, because Bitcoin and Ethereum were like just blockchain, right? Or like crypto or whatever you wanted to call it at the time. And so I think it was one thing and kind of all lumped together. And so I think now it's more defined. Like Bitcoin is Bitcoin, and that's different than Ethereum, and Ethereum is different than all these other things, right? And so I think there are much more clear lines, and so maybe one of the reasons that you're seeing that is because it's not all one thing anymore, and the places that you're going may be focused on more business side of things, or maybe they're more focused on maybe like an established tech ecosystem. Like Ethereum has its core devs, I would say they're making great progress and they're doing really interesting and cool stuff. Like all the newer EIPs are very advanced, I would say, almost to the point where it's like too advanced for normal
developer to get
normal non experienced people without the context to join in on. I feel like it's a little bit less accessible now. It's still totally accessible if you're that deep, but the problems are so deep now. It's not like, oh, what do we do with the whole thing? Now it's like, what do we do about this part, about this thing in this way for the situation?
Correct.
Right. And so, yeah, I forgot the point, but basically I think there has always been stratification of people coming to events, right? So there have always been the expert level, like core developers who are super deep into the tech. And then there were always newbies, like every meetup or conference, there were always like a huge number of newbies, right? And I think there were always people at different levels focused on different things. So you could have been like up here on technical expertise, and this is like the top people, and you could have been here looking up, right? And you could have been like you would approach like Vitalik or some other like founder or some other CTO and have that conversation and be like, how can I help? Right. And so you're pushing up this way. And then there are a lot of people at like this level looking down, trying to like bring people up. There were a lot of initiatives to be like, let me help you set up your first wallet. Right. Like that was a huge thing to be like, hey, like, I'll just send you some money. Right. Like, like if you set up a thing, I'll just send you some, because to us, it's play money.
That's something that I was like, I really wanted to like tell everyone, all my viewers as well. In those days, I remember people like you, people like Vitalik, you guys have helped the community so much. Any new guy who came up to you, even who comes up to you guys, even nowadays, you guys never say no. And I think that is something.
I think Vitalik has to say no.
Yeah, nowadays, yeah, because he's like started with so many messages. But like, of course, but the core thing, like if someone is like trying something new, he might fail, he might succeed, but you never said no. And I think that is a thing which I really miss now, because almost everyone nowadays, the first answer which they procure is no, right? You guys, the old OG guys, were much more accepting. You accepted new people to join you. You wanted to train them. You invested your valuable time into them. And that's something that I really miss now, because most of the time, the real people who want to make something now, they don't find the right environment. Who will they go up to? How will they find people who will support them? Because a college developer will not have the right funds for him to procure a good AWS account or something like that. So let's talk more about the community development.
Sure.
As a person, as a semi-retired person, as you say, how do you give it back? What's your way of giving back to the world that gave you so much?
Yeah, I think I try to just be active in the space, not because that's like it's not something I have to do, but I enjoy being in this space, right? Like I don't plan on leaving this space anytime soon. Like even if the space starts to go down, like that kind of happened. Like AI went crazy and like a whole bunch of people left. But then like a lot of people stayed just because this is what we do. And so I think that has helped kind of solidify that I will be sticking around, because like I could have jumped ship and gone to the AI stuff and like did all that, but like that's not why I was in crypto. Like it's not because it was a hot thing. It was because of I would say for me, that friend during my coding boot camp who like took the time and like sat there. I literally talked to him until like 3 a.m. Like I like sat him down at like something like 9 p.m. and I like grilled him for hours, and I just asked him question after question. And I think that transferred like it transferred his passion about the space to me, and I caught it, right? Like he transferred the fire, right? And so I have tried to do the same when people are in that situation, because I was there, right? And that helped me. And so if I can do that for other people, I would love to just keep doing that, because it's fun, right? Like this is a thing that I'm passionate about, and I like it, and I like talking about it. I like thinking about it. And so if someone else wants to learn, I'll try to help, right? And so that's how we, grow people and communities and stuff like that.
That's really awesome, man. Why don't you tell everyone about your community initiatives as well? Like what you're giving back to the society, how you're running this charity as well? Because hmm, I see this is something that is deep rooted in the very OG development space. You guys have given back to the society as well. And that is something that is deeply admired even right now. Why don't you like tell everyone what do you do for the society? Is there any charitable organization that you fund? Is there a foundation that you have?
Yeah. Um, so the one thing I didn't want to do is shill anything. So I'm not even going to show the nonprofit. But there are nonprofit initiatives that not just me, but many people have started to try to do things like, build communities or like do the onboarding. And I think that's kind of one of the other reasons why onboarding has changed, because individual one-on-one stuff is great, but it doesn't scale at all. And so I think a lot of the projects have realized that there's a balance, right? And so a lot of the beginner, very, very basic stuff can be systematized. We can kind of build an onboarding solution, right? Whether that's good or bad, effective or not is different. But I think it makes sense from a business perspective. It's like, should we spend all of our time onboarding this random person? No, right? Like should our CEO spend 50 minutes of their time like explaining basic wallets to that random person, right? Which they did, right? Like we did that.
Of course, yeah.
But like at a certain point, it makes sense to just be like, we should either hire someone to do that, and like that'll be their role, like community management and stuff like that, or like just systematize it and like put it in an FAQ and stuff. But I like that loses something. I agree with you there. But anyway, so there are initiatives. Lots of places will try to help people, especially on the developer side, because that was always a big topic. Like, how do we get more developers, either like non crypto developers, to bring them into crypto, or to like train up real like non developers into developers and like have them like crypto native to begin with. I think that has largely been solved. I would say now there's a lot more developers in the space. Still not enough for some people, but there's a lot. I would say now we're at a balance where there's sometimes excess developers who are looking for jobs, right? Because back in like 2017, if you knew how to like code even like a bad smart contract, you were doing really well. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone was like shit scared about them getting hacked and losing all the funds, and the investors would really help the people, so that like when they lost a lot of funds, smart contract hacks used to be the thing at that time. And that's how I think most of the developer community
Everyone before a certain point has lost a lot of money in crypto due to some mistake or
unfortunately we are one
yeah.
of them. We have lost a good amount of money in the hacks as well, but I think that's how the community learns.
It's like a rite of passage at a certain point. It's like, how did you get scammed? And so
Yeah,
but
I mean, yeah. Last question, before taking too much of your time. Where do you think is the next Bitcoin in the crypto space? We have you are one of the OGs in the Bitcoin space, one of the I think first
no,
early adopters who accepted payments after that pizza guy, of course, who everyone knows about.
yeah.
So let's talk about where's the next Bitcoin according to you?
What do you mean by Bitcoin in that sentence?
Let's say in the next 10 years or 15 years,
Sure.
people are going to look back and say, man, we should have gotten that early. This is that one thing that
No one knows, man. No one knows.
we will know that maybe 15 years from now. But let's say, in which technological space will that next Bitcoin will be? Like, is it AI, or is it machine learning, or is it like decentralized storage in which you were like previously involved? um what is that one technology that you would pick that will bring the next revolution, which people are going to regret in the next 15 years, that they would have that regret? Why were we not involved in that space?
I feel like I should have an answer to this, but I haven't thought about it in years. Um, I don't think it's AI. Uh, so I think it could be AI, but not what we have now. Like what people think of it as AI is not actually.
It's a conversational AI, right?
Kind of. So when most people now in 2014, or sorry, 2024, in 2024, when we say AI, we mean like LLMs, like ChatGPT and like Claude and all these other versions of basically like transformer models. But yeah, so I think that is great. It's amazing technology, but that's not what people think it is. People think it's like this thinking machine that's
Set of the AI.
yeah, it's just like yeah, it's just finding an answer to your question based off of the data that it has, and then like kind of doing it in a cool way that makes people feel like it's very like innovative. It is innovative. It's great. But it's not this like autonomous thinking machine that people think it is. And so maybe I think we're going towards that, like autonomous thinking machines, like actual AI autonomous agents would be the next thing. But I don't know if that's what would answer your question of like what is the next big revolution, right? So I don't know.
The answer is that no one really knows.
Yeah, no,
Unless 15 years from now we have like a time traveling machine where we go and we like just look back and we would have like a grabbing opportunity. But
yeah.
on that note, Sam, thank you for your time. It was a wonderful conversation. I'm sure we found some great value out of it.
Great.
And I think it was a great conversation. And I look forward to more such great conversations with a whiteboard and explaining some consensus algorithms. And we're like explaining everyone how the mining really works, or how.
Yeah. I would say don't worry so much about the details. I think if you are interested in the details, great. But the tech has come to a point, and like the user experience has come to a point where you don't need to know the vast majority of the details anymore. So if you're a new person coming into the space, everything's much easier now. It's still hard in a different way because you now have to like learn all these different technologies and different like products that people have built. But that's much easier than understanding the core protocol and all the steps needed to get to this product, right? But then it's like less decentralized. It's more like reliant on all of these like intermediary people that have built a thing for you. But I think that's kind of how it is now. I think that's just the reality of coding now. Like,
Abstraction is the key, let's say. Ignorance is bliss. If you want to come into this space,
yeah,
try a few public nodes and
Yeah.
start your development journey?
I think one of the key things was that we're at DevCon 7 now in 2024. And one of the things that Vitalik said in his opening was basically that like the layer one is supposed to be boring, right? It's supposed to be slow and boring, but it's supposed to be secure, right? And that is the basis that we now just take for granted. Like no one thinks about L1 not working,
Yeah.
right? It's just a given that it's fine. It's just got its own problems,
Yeah.
but it's never gonna not be there, right?
Correct.
And so to the point where we now have like all these other things that rely on that at the core, and those things are now where people are focusing. But like this layer one stuff is so steady, it's so consistent, it's so reliable that anyway. So my point was, in the new era of just learning all these new technologies, Ethereum has been working, and so that's great. And so you don't have to necessarily go that deep and like look under the hood, because the people that are working under the hood have the right values, I would say. Like they want to do it in a way that doesn't compromise decentralization and that doesn't introduce like censorship. Like that's so like
Deep rooted in them.
deep rooted. It's so fundamental that they don't even think about. They like purposefully reject anything that would risk it, or they would at least open that up for like very transparent discussion. It's like, we're thinking about implementing this, but it has this potential to go wrong if this happens. Do we want that? Do we want to allow that potential for trouble to creep in? And then generally they don't, like they would just block it pretty early because it's so like against the core values. So the point was, I think you could dive deep if you want, but a lot of the way that it's been built so far, at least to date, is very consistent with the values. And it, I feel comfortable not going under the hood to check and verify everything, which is, it's not the ethos, or you should like, don't trust, verify, right? But like, I would say there's a limit to that. Like not everyone needs to know every detail about everything in every way.
On that note, thank you for your time, Sam. And I'll look forward to more such meaningful conversations. And till then, thank you, everyone. Sri Akal.